New York City is the city that never sleeps. There's always something going on, a tower being erected or a public works project being constructed. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the 15 most interesting mega projects in New York City. Number 15. Hudson Yards. Some things you only get in New York. Dirty water franks, a chopped cheese, pizza rat, celebrity sightings, and the $25 billion project Hudson Yards. Hudson Yards is a real estate development sitting on the border of the Chelsea and Hudson Yard neighborhoods in Manhattan, with its own subway stop. It's the largest urban development since Rockefeller Center, and although you can visit, shop, and live here, the project is still ongoing until 2024. By that time, 13 out of the 16 planned structures will sit on a platform built over the West Side Yard, overlooking the storage yard for the Long Island Railroad trains. Since it officially opened in 2012, Hudson Yards saw plenty of tourists and angry New Yorkers alike, all gawking at not just the nouveau riche aesthetic, but the vessel. The vessel is a giant 16-story structure with 154 flights of stairs, meant to resemble a honeycomb. And other than being the main feature of the Hudson Yards and costing $200 million in taxpayer money, it really doesn't do much else. Number 14. 2 World Trade Center. When the Twin Towers fell in 2001, they left an incredibly big hole in the lives of New Yorkers. Not only was it a horrific day, but the Twin Towers has stood as a beacon of New York pride for so long. So, needless to say, the buildings that would go up in their place had some pretty big shoes to fill. One World Trade went up in 2012 and became the tallest building in the city, the tallest in the Western Hemisphere, and the 7th tallest in the world. But another skyscraper has been proposed to go up in the World Trade Center complex, simply known as 2 World Trade Center. 2 World Trade is designed by Norman Foster and will act as a residential building. But the building was working backward, looking for enough tenants to agree to the apartment mock-ups and prices. But by 2015, they couldn't find enough people to live in the unrealized space, so it was back to the drawing board. Cut to 2020 and new plans have come into play to build an 82-story building that stands over 1,300 feet tall. But this new and improved design goes for a more stacked concept, with glass rectangle-shaped structures working their way all the way up. All the designers need are some heavy-hitting partners and wealthy corporate tenants to agree to move in, and they can finally break ground. Number 13. Brooklyn Tower. Manhattan, it gets a lot of attention, but you have to make sure to show some love for Brooklyn. The aptly named Brooklyn Tower is a proposed skyscraper set to be the first of its kind in Brooklyn, and the first super tall tower to be built outside of Manhattan. Under development by the JDS Development Group, it will certainly bring some of that Manhattan style to the borough and undoubtedly offer some of the best views of all of New York on the top floors. And if you've ever been to New York, you'll know that there's not a lot of space. Both buildings and people are quite literally living on top of each other, so the Brooklyn Tower is going to be tall and skinny to maximize that space. The building officially topped out in 2022 and stands over 1,000 feet tall with 93 floors. But as yet, it's not quite open for business. Brooklyn Tower is going to be a mixed-use building, but once you hit the 52nd floor, things get residential, with condos starting at just under $1 million. The further up you get, you'll find some nice 4-bedroom apartments that will run you only $8 million. That's one expensive home. But with so many people leaving Manhattan and moving to Brooklyn looking for a little more culture, a little more room, and cheaper rents, even a price point like that could be a steal for some. Number 12. 41 West 57th Street. From the people who brought you the Brooklyn Tower comes none other than the proposed skyscraper at 41 West 57th Street in Manhattan. This building is going to be another super tall tower looking to make a name for itself in the New York City skyline. And it's already got a lot going for it. 41 West 57th Street is set to be 1,100 feet tall, with 63 stories containing 119 residential units, along with a 158-room hotel. So there's no doubt that it's going to be filled up with the second and third homes of New York's upper echelon and world diplomats. It's the type of place that not even the likes of Carrie Bradshaw could afford. And because of the prime location, the higher up you are, the better the views of the world-famous Central Park will be. This residential skyscraper was initially proposed in 2015, and it's estimated to officially top out in 2025. But what really makes 41 West 57th Street stand out is its one-of-a-kind facade. The design itself is incredibly complicated, and it's adorned with gold paneling and eagle sculptures throughout, so you better believe that this building is gonna glisten in the sun during those long New York summer days. Number 11. Midtown Manhattan Airport. It's one thing to be a has-been, but it's another thing entirely to be a never was. And unfortunately for the next megastructure on this list, it falls into the latter category. The Midtown Manhattan Airport is a proposed megastructure that, for many New Yorkers, thankfully, never quite saw the light of day. The proposed structure goes back to the 1940s, when William Zeckendorf, owner of both the famous Astor Hotel and Chrysler Building, proposed a hefty $3 billion in which a 1,000-acre barge would sit on the Hudson River, 220 feet above street level, filled with businesses and ticket offices. The roof of the megastructure would hold an airport, and space underneath the street level would be the perfect place for ships to anchor. And that $3 billion price tag isn't adjusted for inflation. Now, on paper, Zeckendorf was onto something. The airport would have been able to accommodate up to 68 1940-era airplanes an hour, which isn't too bad compared to JFK's 71 and LaGuardia's 89 per hour. And the biggest selling point was that Manhattanites wouldn't have to trek to what they like to call the outer boroughs for air travel. But with 3 airports already in the area and a dangerous airstrip that left little room for error lest you fall into the river, the Midtown Manhattan Airport never took off. Number 10. Essex Crossing. Lower Manhattan has an incredibly rich history, and famous artists like Patti Smith, Harley Flanagan, and even the late Lou Reed all helped to shape the area during the 1970s and 80s. But times change, and much of that art and creativity left the neighborhood for greener pastures, leaving Lower Manhattan somewhat bleak, bland, and barren. The city decided to build Essex Crossing right on the East River to bring in new money to the area. As soon as you leave the Williamsburg Bridge, the new Essex Crossing is there to greet you with open arms, not just with new shopping and massive food halls, but also with over 1,000 new and improved apartments. The entire project comprises 1.6 million square feet of housing and retail space, with buildings designed by firms like Shop, Handel, Bayer Blendell Bell, Setra Ruddy, and Datner. People began moving into this Big Apple megaproject in 2018, in the hopes of it being first in line for the Market Line, which houses plenty of outlets for some of New York's best restaurants and is right next door to a massive movie theater and bowling alley. There's also plenty of art to experience at Essex Crossing, with the International Center of Photography flagship opening in early 2020. Essex Crossing is an interesting and welcome addition to the Manhattan skyline. Number 9. Cornell Tech. Some of the world's best and brightest attend Cornell University in New York. It's an Ivy League school that lets you get a quality education while still living in the big city. But it's also pretty old. So in 2017, Cornell expanded and began the first phase of its new tech-specific campus on the southern end of Roosevelt Island. The new megaproject involved opening 3 buildings for passive housing, all of which would be high-tech, sustainable glass structures designed by Handel architects, who also had a hand in building the Essex Crossing. The megaproject is set to take up to 2 million square feet of space, and considering Roosevelt Island is just 139 acres, you can bet that Cornell Tech is going to take up a lot of space. The full multi-use space was set to open in 2020, but money, bureaucracy, and a global pandemic threw a wrench in that timeline. But when all is said and done, we'll be seeing academic buildings alongside the student housing, as well as a hotel designed by Snohetta, where all of the students can party or have their parents stay when they're in town, and even a little tech walk next to the central campus. Plus, Roosevelt Island has one of the most fun commutes in the world with its tramway. Number 8. Riverside Center. The Upper West Side is home to the upper echelon of New York City, but now even the wealthiest of New Yorkers may be priced out with the onset of the area's most recent megaproject. The Riverside Center involved an 8-acre development over an old industrial lot and exposed rail yard that are well overdue for a makeover. Taking up space between 59th and 61st Streets on the west side, the Riverside Center is conceived and designed by the developer Xtel, with some help from the Dermott Company, and construction on 5 of those 8 buildings has already begun. So far, though, it looks like the gem of Riverside City is the new building at 21 West End Avenue, which is a 43-story, 616-unit residential building that will offer some of the best views of the island that money can buy. Then there's the Waterline Square, which consists of 3 mixed-use towers as well as bringing both homes, jobs, and money into the Upper West Side. These new skyscrapers are designed by some pretty big names in architecture like Raphael Vanoli, Kohn Peterson Fox, and Richard Meyer. Folks looking to Riverside City can also expect to see a brand new park that connects all 3 of these new West Side skyscrapers, blending nature and technology into one harmonious entity. Number 7. Bronx Point. While the island of Manhattan may be a major hub of culture and commerce, you can't forget about the other boroughs. The Bronx is the birthplace of a lot of great people, but it's also home to more than just stars who have moved on and the Yankees, and so the city is looking to remind the rest of us of that fact with their newest megaproject, Bronx Point. Bronx Point is the joint venture megaproject from the L&M Development Partners and Type A Projects and will provide both residential and retail spaces to be enjoyed. They broke ground in 2020, and while they certainly have a ways to go, there is quite literally nowhere to go but up. But unlike so many other megaprojects in New York City and the rest of the world, the Bronx Point isn't meant to cater to the wealthiest of society. Instead, the developers are looking to provide affordable housing for those who need it without skimping out on style and taste. The housing will sit along the Harlem River with the lower concourse and will bring about 1,000 units to the masses. They want living in Bronx Point to be fun, which is why the Universal Hip Hop Museum will live there, as well as a new waterfront esplanade and a park connecting the Mill Pond Park, the public plaza, and a much-wanted multiplex theater. Bronx Point is the type of place that you're probably never going to want to leave. Number 6. Willets Point. Anybody can be a Yankees fan. They've built one of the greatest dynasties in all of baseball, and many of their players have become celebrities. But Mets fans are true blue, cheering their team on through thick and thin, and so the team and fans alike deserve the best. So Willets Point is a mega project in Queens that rebuilt the old and frankly ugly Shea Stadium for the baseball team. It took some time, and after around 15 years of bureaucratic delays, the new Willets Point broke ground and eventually not only built a new stadium, but also another 1,100 housing units for the crowded city. The meat of the Willets Point project sits on 6 acres of space, but Phase 2 of the project involved a hefty 17-acre expansion into the surrounding area. Shea Stadium became the much nicer Citi Field, a killer open-air ballpark with views of the water. And speaking of water, the best part about the Willets Point mega project is its location, because not only is it waterfront property, but it's also home to the Arthur Ashe Stadium, and the city has also suggested adding a brand new 25,000-seat soccer stadium in the neighborhood too. Number 5. Greenpoint Landing. Manhattan. It's been growing exponentially for a New York minute, and a lot of that growth has spilled over to Brooklyn as an influx of people have moved to the borough in hopes of getting a better deal on rent and just getting a bit more space. Greenpoint is a beautiful waterfront neighborhood at the north edge of Brooklyn that's just a stone's throw away from Manhattan. That's also seen one of its first mega projects. Greenpoint Landing is a 22-acre mega project that's made possible by the collaboration between the Park Tower Group, L&M Development, which has had a hand in many other Big Apple mega projects, and Brookfield Properties. The Greenpoint Landing involved the construction of 5,500 apartments, with more than a third of those being affordable units. Handel Architects has taken the helm over of the entire Brooklyn-based endeavor. The 3 super tall buildings at 5 Blue Slip, 7 Blue Slip, and 33 Eagle Street, all of which are already open and full of happy tenants with some of the best views in the borough. But the Greenpoint mega project doesn't just end at housing, because they've also built a massive waterfront park open to the public designed by James Corner Field Operations, and even a new school that kids pre-kindergarten all the way up through the 8th grade can attend. Number 4. Domino Park. Just south of the Greenpoint Landing is the mega project at Domino Park. Located in the trendy hipster neighborhood of Williamsburg in Brooklyn, the old Domino sugar factory was once a Brooklyn staple, but has been decommissioned, abandoned, and in a state of disarray for years. So, what should a municipality do with something like that? Well, how about giving people new space to live, work, and play? That's exactly what happened with this new mega project, and so the city built Domino Park on the historic site. Shop became the main project architect in March of 2013 and really hit the ground running. The plan brought 5 new tower apartments to the former sugar factory with 2,800 apartments, 700 of which were priced below the market rate, all of which are sitting on 631,000 square feet of prime real estate that is in the South Williamsburg waterfront. The folks living here really are right on the water, and so they can bet that no new building can ever be constructed to obstruct their view of Manhattan. If you're here, then you've made it. And on those especially sunny days, then you can do the right thing and head down to the brand new waterfront park where kids can play at the playground and the true New Yorkers can play bocce. And even the young and the restless can grab a margarita and watch the sunset over the East River. Number 3. Manhattan West. The folks at Brookfield Property Partners are hard at work to bring one of the biggest mega projects New York has ever seen to the city in the form of Manhattan West. Manhattan West involves a 5 million square foot development that's meant to usher in a new era of the island's west side. 2 out of the 5 million square feet of Manhattan West are dedicated to 2 office towers, a residential tower offering just 844 giant units, and the remainder that is for retail and restaurants, and another 2 acres of public outdoor space. Manhattan West is located between 9th and 10th Avenue and 31st through 33rd Street. And for those city-savvy folk, you'll know that Manhattan West then will serve as a vital link serving the Midtown business areas to Penn Station, the north end of Chelsea, and Hudson Yards, meaning millions of people will be passing through here whether they're on their way to work, grabbing a bite to eat, or visiting from out of town. New York City is all about the hustle and bustle, and that unfortunately means a lot of traffic and cars blaring their horns. So thankfully, Manhattan West provides mostly walkable space, so anyone with a car need not apply. This is a multi-billion-dollar project that will give the area a much-needed facelift. Number 2. One Vanderbilt. Manhattan. It's full of some pretty tall skyscrapers, each one taller than the last. One World Trade Center is even on the list of the world's tallest buildings. There's not much space on the island, and so everyone is building up, and that includes One Vanderbilt. One Vanderbilt is the tallest skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan, and the 4th tallest in the entire city. So as of 2020, when folks look at the Manhattan skyline from afar, they can see that One Vanderbilt has joined the ranks of the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building as the 3 main skyscrapers that dominate the airspace and illuminate the night sky. The new building's also been built to fit into the wild public transportation network that really makes the Big Apple feel like a living, breathing entity, more so than any other building in existence. The base of One Vanderbilt feeds into Grand Central Station, so anyone commuting to work here won't have to navigate the crowd of tourists who often walk too slowly to take in the sights. Number 1. LaGuardia Airport. Ask any real New Yorker, someone who spent their entire life there, about LaGuardia Airport. They'll tell you that for most of their life, the airport has been an absolute nightmare. Luckily, though, the city has spent billions of dollars on revamping the airport over the years, but the biggest aspect of this mega project is simply known as Terminal B. Terminal B provides travelers with state-of-the-art services and 35 new gates to replace the existing central terminal building that hasn't been updated since 1964. The new project managed to transform LaGuardia Airport into one unified hub instead of the original broken-up mess, and the new facility has expanded transportation access and optimized airfield performance with an island concourse gate configuration. 2 pedestrian bridges have been built to connect those concourses with the head house and let travelers walk right over the taxi lanes. Terminal B is now also 2 miles closer to Grand Central Parkway, which literally everyone will be driving on whether they're coming home or paying NYC a visit, so as to greatly reduce any airport ground delays. And to keep things light, LaGuardia Airport has added multiple regional cuisines that reflect the amazing cultural and ethnic diversity of New York, all in one place. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.